God'll get you for that one.
Maude is owned by Shout Factory.
God'll Get You for That, Walter is produced for entertainment purposes only.
Sponsored in part by Findley's Friendly Appliances. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of God'll Get You for That, Walter.
And he does not.
He does not.
He does not in this episode.
There were definite moments when he absolutely could have.
He could have, but he did not.
He did not. Welcome to episode 61 of God'll Get You for That, Walter.
61!
61.
Who would have guessed?
My name is Tom Catt, and I am joined, as ever, by who?
Your drag mother, Toni Homeperm.
Of course. And welcome to God'll Get You for That, Walter, a podcast where we discuss the 1970s hit sitcom, Maude. And today we're going over Season 3, Episode 13, Walter's Ex.
And this was a really good episode.
I enjoyed this episode.
This was a good one.
Definitely a good one.
Yes.
It originally aired December 9th, 1974. Directed, of course, by Hal Cooper. Written by Norman Lear, Elliot Shainman, and Barbara Gallagher. And we have some guest stars, don't we?
We do.
We have Carol Cook playing Marta,
Mm-hmm.
and Charles White playing Uncle Henry.
Yes.
Now, Carol Cook is a relatively noteworthy actress.
Yes,
She's been on
yes.
a number of things. She's been on. She was in 16 Candles.
Yeah, she was the one mother-in-law with the cigarette and the huge ash, and the other mother-in-law is trying to catch the ash before it falls in the food. But she has done so much.
She has,
TV. Let's see, I'm looking here on
understudied. I believe she understudied Carol Channing for Hello, Dolly a couple of times.
I mean, listen to. Dynasty, Cagney and Lacey, Magnum PI, The A-Team, Murder She Wrote, Quincy M.E., The Love Boat, Heart to Heart, Knight Rider, Trapper John M.D., Laverne and Shirley, Starsky and Hutch, Charlie's Angels, Emergency, Chico and the Man, Beretta, Maude, of course, Macmillan and Wife, Here's Lucy, That Girl, the new Phil Silver show, The Lucy Show. I mean, she's just one of those...
A laundry list.
Yeah, and as we said also, the 16 Candles. Also, she was in American Gigolo. I think she was the older woman.
More than likely.
That, Richard Gere, he kind of like seduces.
Yes.
So
I believe that's accurate.
Oh, she was also in The Incredible Mr. Limpet with Don Knotts.
Oh, with Don Knotts.
Yes.
My mother loved that movie.
Yes. I mean, a lot of things. And even 2017, she was in A Very Sordid Wedding. There was that series, that Sordid Lives.
Yes,
and she was in the one A Very Sordid Wedding. So
she's still alive.
Still alive.
She's still going, and she's still active.
Still going. Yeah. So.
Oh no, she retired. She retired in 2018.
2018. Yes.
According to the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, because she's 98 now.
Yeah, good for her.
Wow.
Good for her.
She's a great character actress.
Very good character actress. And she always plays we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
What she did in Maude was very typical. Of what she played.
So the episode begins with Maude entering, smacking her hands with the morning paper.
Yeah, Carol's in the kitchen, sitting at the table, and she's smacking that newspaper.
And, Carol is, of course, in her own little world, ignoring her mother.
Which grates on Maude.
Of course it does.
She wants all the attention.
Because Maude needs the spotlight on her at all times.
Of course. And if she doesn't get it...
I was going to wait until the very last episode, but how similar do you think I am to Maude?
Is there a difference? I thought that was the whole point of it.
Let's talk about you for a minute. How do you think I relate to Maude?
Well, I mean, I think the DNA would probably be almost an exact genetic match at this point.
Well,
our good friend, that Queen from Queens, says if B. Arthur ever
alive today,
if B. Arthur had a voice activated like Vault or something, you would be able to get it.
That'd be me. I'd be able to crack the B. Arthur, crack the B. Arthur safe. Oh goodness!
So Maude is yelling at Carol.
Carol, watch me.
Yes.
So she says that she is I think Carol asks her, what's
wrong? Yes.
And Maude says that she's on the verge of becoming an axe
murderess. Yes.
And I think
Carol says something. Oh, you finally found
a career
that suits
that
you.
suits you.
Yes.
And the audience gets a good old chuckle out of that.
And
I think Maude says, "Keep it up, and you'll be my first customer."
She'll be the first customer. So it turns out that Maude she's annoyed because Mrs. Naugatuck keeps hitting her up for a raise.
And she calls her a greedy old biddy.
Yeah, she wants to cement her teeth together.
Yep, if she keeps on asking, I'm going to cement her teeth together.
Yes.
I think, as a matter of fact, Mrs. Naugatuck was leaving subtle hints, like carving "Help Naugatuck now" on toilet paper.
Yes. And Carol's like, well, if she's so annoying, why don't you just fire her?
And Maude says, "What can I do, Carol? I love her."
Which, and then...
We hear bagpipes
coming from the living room.
Of all things, we hear bagpipes.
So Maude and Carol rush out into the living room. There's Mrs. Naugatuck coming down the stairs.
Sauntering down the stairs.
Blowing on the bagpipes.
And what tune is she playing? She's playing a specific tune.
I don't know. I don't remember. I just heard the bagpipes.
She was definitely playing bagpipes, and I think Maude at that point says, "All right, Carol, you take the high road, I'll take the low road."
Yes.
And Mrs. Naugatuck then says at the top of the stairs,
"Hold it!"
Yes.
"This is a demonstration in your honor.
You're the only person I know who's stingier than a Scotchman."
And Maude says, "That's terrible. Everyone, it's not true about Scotsmen being cheap."
They said Scotchman. I don't think they said Scotsman.
They didn't say Scotsman?
They said Scotchman.
Scotchman.
I don't know why.
Okay.
When I hear Scotchman, I think of the tape.
The tape.
Scotch tape.
Oh, Scotch tape. Yes. Scotch tape. Yes, Scotch tape. Okay. Very well. And if Mrs. Naugatuck says, I know you're right. She knows the Scotch orange sheep.
She knows the Scotch orange sheep, but you are.
You are, yes.
And I think she says, if you think you're not, you should tighten your nuts and bolts.
Yes. And then Maude goes into this thing where she's trying to explain to Mrs. Naugatuck that everything's terrible right now. There's inflation. And all this and all that.
I mean, at that point, there really was going on.
Right. And Mrs. Naugatuck says she's not falling for
that malarkey.
Yes.
I'm not going to fall for that malarkey.
Yes. And she goes into the kitchen.
And Maude then pleads with Carol.
Yeah, to go talk to her.
Please go and talk to her, and if she gives you any lip, go for the throat.
Yes. And then Walter comes in ecstatic.
Literally overjoyed.
Overjoyed. And he's like, Maude, have I got news for you? You're never going to guess what happened.
It's the greatest news ever.
Yes.
And she says, your prunes worked.
Your prunes worked.
And the audience has a good old laugh at that.
Yes.
And Walter's like, no, it was even better than that. And Maude then says, you found a pair of pants that fits you in the seat.
In the seat, exactly.
Have you ever had problems finding pants that fit you comfortably?
No.
I have.
You have?
That's because I'm so tall.
Oh, that's true.
I need like 36 by 36 because every time I get like a 30 or a 34, my ankles show.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want that.
Yeah, so I never have a problem. I never have a problem with the pants.
Why do you never have a problem finding clothing, Mom?
Because I'm practically doll-sized. That's why.
You are. You are the life-size version of the Barbie doll.
It's true. It's true.
Oh, hell. Oh, for those... You can watch Maude on Tubi.
Yes, especially in this episode specifically.
Yes, you can watch season 3 and season 4 on Tubi for free, and seasons 1 to 2 for free on Freevee, which is hosted by Amazon
Prime.
Amazon Prime.
And this actually is listed correctly.
This is listed
Tubi
correctly
because they do not have the episodes listed in the correct
order. Yeah.
But this one
was correct.
Was listed as 13, and it is 13.
Yes, it is 100% 13.
But we digress.
Yes.
So yes, Walter's problem is he can't find pants that fit him in the seat.
And he says, no, that's not what it is. And he starts taking out...
He puts this kimono, this purple kimono on...
Beautiful purple kimono
on Maude. Right?
And his is yellow.
Yes, and he puts on one that's yellow, and he's telling her this is the happiest day. Marta called.
Miserable Marta.
Miserable Marta called.
And
he's like, what do you think could have happened?
And she says, the Goodyear blimp fell on her.
He says, even better.
Even better.
Even better.
And that we find out that she's getting married again. And that she was on a singles cruise to Jamaica.
Yes, and she found a rich guy.
Yep.
To marry, so Walter will not have to pay alimony anymore. And he's telling Maude, think of the money. And Maude is she's ecstatic, she's happy too, and she says, we're gonna be rich. And at that point,
Mrs. Naugatuck enters saying,
we are. So Maude tells her, he says, fine, you can have that raise.
That cost of living raise.
Yes.
And Mrs. Naugatuck says, thank goodness, I'm going to buy myself three new uniforms. I mean, in this, I'm just another sex pot.
Yes.
But even before that, we come to find out that Walter, because putting the kimono on, says that they're going to go to Japan. They're getting tickets.
Well, no, this was after that.
Oh, it was after that.
It was
Wonderful.
after that. Yes, I had something.
Actually, no. Yeah, just
there was something about someone being called a tightwad.
Oh, I couldn't do that. Oh, no. I think at that point, Maude then says to Mrs. Naugatuck, if you think I'm such a tightwad, why don't you pack your bags and get out?
Right.
And Mrs. Naugatuck goes to Walter and says, I couldn't do that. I love her. That's right.
So
there's a lot of love happening between...
Yes. Now she loves her.
It's interesting. I never really gave this much thought, but watching the interaction between Maude and Mrs. Naugatuck, knowing that there is such an age difference, it's almost as if Mrs. Naugatuck is the mother that Maude never had.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it is.
It's definitely that type of a relationship.
True.
So
it kind of harkens
to us,
to the relationship. Well, on the Golden Girls of
Dorothy and Sophia. Yeah,
so that dynamic.
Yeah, that's a very, very similar dynamic.
Yes. That sort of love each other, but love to aggravate each other.
Exactly.
Yes.
A lot like us.
Yes, so true. So Walter's, he's saying, he's talking about the kimonos, and he's saying, and then he pulls out 2 tickets.
2 tickets.
They're going to Japan. And Maude's ecstatic.
I love Japan.
She adores Japan.
I adore Japan.
The first song she learned to play on the piano was
Chopsticks.
Which,
before that, there was a funny bit when Mrs. Naugatuck leaves and she blows the bagpipes at Maude.
Oh, yes.
And Maude then says, same to you.
Yes.
That was adorable.
That was
so,
funny.
Yes, we find out that they're going to Japan. Maude is ecstatic. She's listing all of the things that she loves so much about Japan.
If Carol had been a boy,
she would have named them Toyota.
Yes.
Then Maude starts listing like the Ginza, bonsai trees, Buddhist temples.
Yes.
And Walter's like, we're going to go to the Orient see how the Oriental live.
Yes. And we
know that Oriental is a very derogatory term.
You can call a rug Oriental. You can call it a
vase Oriental.
Vase. On this podcast, it's vase.
On every vase.
It is a vase. It is not a vase.
Well,
it is a vase.
Thank God I hated that.
A vase can be Oriental. A thing can be Oriental. A person cannot be Oriental. So, but this was
the 70s.
The 70s, and they were ignorant of that.
Very much so. Very much so.
So they're talking. So Maude wants to know. She's talking about Mount Fuji,
the Ginza, bonsai trees, Buddhist temples.
Wants to know where are they staying?
And Walter says
the Holiday Inn.
The Holiday Inn.
Because the Howard Johnson's
was booked
full.
Solid.
It was full.
It was booked solid. So I think at that point we come to our first commercial break.
Arthur comes in.
And then when we come back, Arthur enters and he is frantic.
Yeah, he needs to borrow Walter's car.
And Walter asks, why do you need to borrow it?
And because either Vivian borrowed it or it was stolen.
And this was probably one of the funniest lines.
Yes, Arthur says he hates to think that there's a crook driving around with MD plates.
And Maude says, somehow, Arthur, that doesn't strike me as unusual.
Yes.
And the audience loses it.
Yes.
Even I lost it.
So Walter starts saying, Arthur, the greatest thing happened.
And what did Arthur say?
You found pants that fit
you in the seat.
And Walter says, "No, my ex Marta is getting married. No more alimony." And Arthur says, "Well, I always liked Marta.
She had a permanent skin rash and money was no object.
Yes." And Walter's like, "Yes, because it was my money."
Yep.
He says she was a money grubber. She was impossible.
And Mrs. Naugatuck says, "Aren't we all?"
Yeah. So Maude says, "Well, maybe something about her. Maybe she was a nice ogre."
Yeah, she did say that. Maybe she was a nice ogre.
Yeah.
And then we finally get to the crux of... We finally get to something that really triggers Walter.
Well, Walter's talking about the credit cards, her mink stole, that even at one point she was living with an acrobat. He was what was the nationality?
Some type
Romanian.
of... I think a Romanian
acrobat.
Romanian acrobat. And she wouldn't marry him because she would lose the alimony.
Because she would lose the alimony. And he's like, and that's when he starts going, "She called me cheap. Cheap.
And he just keeps on saying cheap until Arthur says, "I understand. Don't worry, Maude. I've seen this happen all the time with men that think they're still at the war and still in the combat zone." And he slaps
him.
Walter across the face.
Yes.
He says, "Settle down, fella. War's over.
Yes.
You can go back to Nell and the twins and the old homestead."
The old homestead.
And
back to the States.
Honestly, it was one of those things where I'm like, they're really sort of glossing over how detrimental PTSD actually is.
Yeah, well...
Because, like, that is still...
Yes, it's very much a thing.
This is being recorded the day after the 4th of July. So, obviously, like, how much do fireworks cost?
I have no clue.
Because there were a lot being fired off last night.
Yes. Now, just for reference, because obviously I don't think any of our listeners would know this. I mean, we don't live too far apart.
We do not live too far apart.
We do not live too far apart.
We live just about 5 seconds away from each other.
I mean, we don't, but we could walk to each other.
We could walk to each other. I have.
You have.
I've walked here before.
I refuse to.
I know you do.
But the amount of fireworks going off last night.
It was bad.
Yeah.
It was so
bad. And, and I feel bad. Like, my cats don't care about the fireworks.
Mine do.
But some people's animals, they really do. And,
my cousins would send me Snapchat. Because, again, my cousins also do not live that far from where I live.
Right.
And they would send me the Snapchats of their one dog, Franco, just could not give anything less. But their other dog, Penelope, would shake, hide in the shower, go downstairs and hide like where... Because it's very frightening to these to these animals.
I just never understood the appeal or the... I don't get it.
Neither do I.
I just don't get it.
But I mean, not gonna lie, there are times when, like, if I see fireworks being fired off, I will stop my car and watch. And then, like, as soon as it's over...
I can appreciate, like, a professional fireworks
Yes, Grucci, display. Macy's display, Disney World.
I mean, even here in Ronkonkoma, I mean, they do... I don't know if they had it this year, but in the past, they've had, like, a big fireworks show
at
over the lake. And actually, we can see it from here. And,
but you didn't have it.
I don't know. I wasn't looking.
You weren't paying attention.
I wasn't paying attention. We
were
tired.
You were exhausted.
I was tired.
You spent the day of the
invasion.
invasion.
I was on Fire Island. I did the invasion of the Pines, and by the time we got home and everything, and I de-dragged and all that, and dinner.
You were just...
I was done. Stick a fork in me.
Yeah, fork tender.
So yeah, I mean, I can appreciate, like, a professional fireworks show, which is how it should be. It should be handled by professionals. They're explosives.
They are explosives.
Every year, somebody's losing an eye.
Someone's losing an
finger,
eye, a hand,
I mean, it's not something to fool around with, and I don't know
there
why.
There was one TikTok that I saw. Someone literally put a firework in the crack of their behind and lit it off, and I'm like,
was it a straight man?
I'm sure it was
because
I am positive it was a straight
man. Because a woman and gay men are too smart to do something like that.
Just a skosh.
I mean, let's face it. You don't see women doing that stupid. You really don't.
I think the most terrifying thing a gay man does is just have indiscriminate, unprotected sex.
That's true.
That's all.
Yes. Yeah,
that's the most dangerous thing that they do.
That's true. I mean
that's the most dangerous thing that we do.
That we do. Yes. Well, for me, that I used to when I was young. I don't anymore.
Oh goodness!
I gave it up for Lent. I'm not even Catholic.
Not even Catholic. I might give it up for Lent next
should.
year. I think
You
I
should.
should. I've given up
Really
all of
should,
the apps. I've given up. I'm tired. I'm too old.
Good.
I have other things to worry about and occupy my time.
There you go.
So,
As at that point, we hear there's a car. We hear a car outside.
We hear a car outside, and
Arthur says it's either Vivian
or a
thief.
thief. And there was this really crass joke made about women drivers.
Yes.
And obviously it was about Vivian, but we can surmise that this is Arthur making a joke.
about all women, yes.
And he says, "Oh, if the car crashes, it's Vivian."
It's Vivian. And sure enough, we hear a car crash. And Arthur says, well, thank goodness
it wasn't stolen.
It wasn't stolen.
And he races out the door.
Yes.
And that was the last we see of Arthur for the entirety of the episode.
So Walter, he's still angry about Marta, about all the years that he feels like that she took advantage of him.
And Maude says, well, if she was such an ogre, why did you stay with her all these years? And what did Walter say?
He says, because she was the sexiest woman I'd ever seen.
And the audience...
And he realizes as soon as those words come out of his mouth,
Maude just gives him... That would have been the God will get you for that Walter moment.
Yes, that would have been the perfect one. And and then now Walter tries to dig himself out of the hole.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I think he
the
says
second sexiest
woman.
She's the Avis to your hers.
Yes.
And Maude then says, well, I guess she tried harder.
She tried harder.
Now, what? I don't know. I guess that has something
to do... It was a commercial. Yeah, it was an
commercial.
Avis,
That's
commercial.
what I thought.
Yeah, that, the I don't remember which one it was, the Avis or the Hertz, but they said, that was their thing. We try harder.
Yes, and Maude gets up and walks to the door, and she says, you think about that,
yes.
And if you want to stay in the driver's seat, the answer better be hers.
Right.
So the audience has a good laugh over that.
So Maude goes to answer the door.
And it's Uncle Henry, played by Charles White.
Yes, I'm not familiar with him. Don't recognize him from anything.
Nope.
So, and he says, hey, Ginger Snap. Now, when I hear the name Ginger Snap, I think of...
Ginger Minge.
No, I think of Ginger Snap from Fire Island.
Oh, you think of Ginger Snap from Fire Island?
There's a very famous, famous drag queen
Fire Island drag queen.
Fire Island, and lips and all that. She was like, she won everything. She was like Miss Fire Island. She was Miss Cherry. She was Homecoming Queen. When I did the Miss Cherry's pageant, she was the host of it. She loved my name, by the way.
I'm sure she did because, the two of you are old.
Yes. So true. So true. Shall I fix you a cup of tea?
Will it relax me?
It will relax you.
Oh, good. So there's this big greeting, this big hello.
And Marta's saying, yes, he always called me Ginger Snap.
Yep, and he's still quick-witted and he hasn't dimmed a bit. He says, that's me, still a dimwit.
Still a dimwit, yeah.
So again, very jovial, almost like a Santa Claus type character.
Yes. And then I think Mrs. Naugatuck came in, so Maude is like,
I want to introduce you to my Uncle Henry.
I want you to meet someone. And she says, I can get my own dates.
No thanks, Mom. I can get my own dates. And we have, again, one of the more funnier interactions in the episode, where we find out that Uncle Henry runs a bakery, a cookie factory.
Yes, he was Aunt Emma.
Yes.
The Cookie King of Ohio.
Cookie King of Ohio.
Yes.
And what did Mrs. Naugatuck then say?
She said, oh, my nephew is the drag queen of Chelsea.
The transvestite drag queen of Chelsea.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yep.
Yes. So, Maude is telling she's their Uncle Henry to sit, and they're going on about all the cookies.
Rolling into a lot of cookie puns.
Yes, a lot of cookie
rolling
puns.
In dough.
Rolling in dough. And,
she asked him, what he's doing
here.
Yeah,
why have you dropped in?
Yeah.
He has big news
Happiest
for them.
news.
Yes.
I'm getting married.
He's getting married.
And we notice that Walter is sort of his interest is piqued, but Maude is overjoyed.
Yes. And, and they're telling congratulations.
And then Maude says, isn't this great, Walter? 2 new marriages.
Yes.
And, Uncle Henry stops her and says,
talk about a coincidence. I was on a cruise.
To Jamaica.
A singles cruise to Jamaica. And,
this is where Walter and Maude start going back and forth with each other, and, Maude saying, oh, well, it can't be. It can't.
No.
And Walter's like, no, it couldn't possibly be.
And, of course, the doorbell rings again.
Yep.
And
Uncle Henry gets up. Walter and Maude are still
saying, I have a big surprise for you.
And we open the door, and Uncle Henry opens the door, and in walks Carol Cook.
As Marta. Looking
rather attractive in this pseudo,
Yes.
It was this brown taffeta, almost All About Eve, Betty Davis and All About Eve, with this beautiful fur shrug.
Yes, it was beautiful.
And her hair done very elegantly.
Yes.
With the exaggerated zsa front.
Yeah. No, it didn't have the exaggerated zsa front. It was just pulled back.
But it was still very attractive.
I'm sure a queen from Queens we know say it lacked the exaggerated zsa
Like the exaggerated.
We don't have to worry. She doesn't listen to
this. It's okay.
She'll never listen to this.
But it still tickles me regardless.
I know. So she comes in and she says, bingo!
Yes, because Walter says, Marta.
And
Maude says, bingo. So I think at that point we have...
and Uncle Henry says, he calls it my vanilla wafer.
Yep.
Yes.
And, Marta enters and she's very elegant and very proper and very poised. And she says, don't tell me, I know.
Yes.
This must be my new niece.
And she says, do you have a kiss for
your Auntie Marta? And, B. Arthur just has those brilliant facial expressions.
Yes. And Uncle Henry's like, what do we have to say?
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Congratulations. And they say in unison, I want to see you in the kitchen.
Yeah. So they make an excuse. They're going to make coffee to have with all these cookies.
And Walter's being this really big goon, holding the cookies, turns around at them and says, cookies! And then runs into the kitchen.
Yeah, so they go into the kitchen.
Walter is ecstatic because now the money from...
the alimony will
stop.
Won't have to pay it anymore.
But Maude is incensed because her uncle is going to be completely and totally taken advantage of.
He feels that, he's getting taken by Marta and, she's after him for his money.
Yep.
Is what she's thinking.
Because Maude actually says, Walter, she is a thieving, money-hungry, conniving... Money grubber.
Yes, and Walter's like, people change!
And his whole demeanor has shifted.
Yes.
And I think he's going on about some excuse like, people change, this and that, and Maude says she has been here for 10 seconds.
And Walter's like, he's going on about this thing that he's a merchant, a retailer, he studies people, and
he knows that when a person walks in, he sized her up.
He sized her up.
And that was when Maude comes back at him and says, that's why your store's been held up 3 times in the past 6 months.
And, Maude says to him, that she feels for Walter, but he has to understand she loves her Uncle Henry. I guess that they didn't really get into it, but she says he was like the only one that made her childhood bearable.
Yep.
So
which leads me to believe that it was her mother's brother.
Probably.
Her mother's brother, not her father's brother.
Yes.
So I think at that point she says, I don't want Uncle Henry to be become a bitter, exploited, plucked clean schnook like you, which she says to Walter.
Yes, and Walter, he's going on this thing about human feelings and
we just forgive and forget.
To forgive and forget.
You can't take away that.
Give her
the sweet girl her dream. We cannot play God.
Yeah, we can't play God.
I think he says something about we gotta just let those 2 swell kids out there be themselves.
Yes, those two swell kids. And Maude so eloquently lets Walter have it with a raspberry.
I would do that. I would easily do that.
Because she's just calling him out on his,
BS.
Because obviously, ridiculous. He's just, all Walter sees is that, he's getting out of paying alimony. He doesn't
Which, honestly, I can't fault Walter.
I don't fault him at all.
Paying alimony does not strike me as a fun time.
No. It's not. And,
So I think at that point, Maude then I think calls him cheap.
He calls him cheap.
And, he like starts going, I'm not cheap. I'm not cheap. Stop calling me cheap. That's what she called me. She called me cheap. And Marta then enters saying, well, it's always nice to see that you're still blowing your top.
Actually, when he was doing the cheap, I think Maude told him.
Oh, Maude said, are you planning on flying south for the winter?
Yes, and that's when Marta came in.
That's when Marta enters.
And she says, us still blowing your top.
And then says,
there's not much
top left to blow. So I think at that point, Maude's like...
Well, Walter tells her, he said, you still have a great sense of humor.
Yes, putting on that very phony act.
Yes. And I think that's when Maude tells him...
Ginger Snap would like to talk to Vanilla Wafer.
And she tells him to go, stay with
Uncle Henry. And she's shoving him out the door. And he goes,
yes.
Oh, the two of you are still such jokers. Stop pushing me. I can do it on my own.
So Marta and Maude start this thing where Marta's like, Maude.
And you're Marta. Marta.
Yes.
And she says, Marta says it's still a bit of a shock.
Yeah, she knows it's a shock.
But it is funny, isn't it?
Yes.
And she...
That laugh. She does this laugh.
That very vicious laugh.
Yes.
Almost very Disney
villainous.
Very
so
Disney
villainous.
villain-like.
Yes. And she's like, and just think about it that, Walter's first wife is marrying the second wife's uncle.
And she proceeds to do that.
Yes.
That laugh again.
Yes.
Making the second wife his first wife's niece.
Yes. And Marta's like, oh, it's a real riot.
It's a riot.
Yes.
And, they both sit down and Marta says, if this were on a soap opera, Maude cuts her off and says, I'd give up soap. Yes. And Marta says, oh, that's a riot, Maude.
Yes.
So, I really enjoyed the dynamic between Marta and Maude. And I wish that they had brought Carol Cook back for
she was a good foil for Maude.
A very good foil for Maude.
Yes.
And one that, honestly, I don't think Maude has really fought.
Yeah.
Because, up until this point, we've seen her go up against... Arthur and Vivian and Walter and Mrs. Naugatuck, but we've never seen someone that is sort of similar to Maude.
As formidable.
As formidable, exactly.
Yes, because all the others, they don't stand a chance.
Not at all.
And they don't. But Marta was a different story.
Marta was definitely
a different story.
She was a force to be reckoned with.
So, then we get something about wanting them to be... wanting to be honest with each other, even if it kills them. Correct?
Well, if it kills us, you go first.
Yes. And but Maude cuts her off.
Maude cuts her off and says, no, I'll go first.
And she just wants one answer.
Are you marrying him for love? And Marta says, of course I'm marrying him for love.
Marrying for love.
And Maude's like, I was so
And
worried.
she gives Marta this big
welcome to the family.
Welcome to the family.
And Marta says, love of comfort, love of luxury, love of money. And Maude then says, it's so difficult to keep a family together these days.
Yes.
So at that point, I think, we finally get to the crux of why they're together in the first place. Marta's, staunchly stares down Maude and says, Maude, I am a barrel of fun. And Maude says, I'll buy half that.
Yes. And Marta's saying, you have a man. Why are you begrudging me one?
True.
Yes.
So I think at that point, Walter...
And she assures Maude that he's going to love being married to me.
Yes.
And I think Walter came in at that point.
Yes, Walter comes in at that point. Marta goes out. And, Maude then says, you were right, Walter. Mm-hmm. She is not thieving, conniving, money-hungry. She's a barracuda.
A laughing
barracuda.
Yes.
And I think... I'm trying to remember what happens between the next line, but I think Walter says something to the effect of hatred being brought up, and I think Marta hating Maude, or something to that effect.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think Maude says, I've survived hatred.
Yes.
3 ex-husbands and a mother who wanted a boy.
Yes. And
still tickles
you know,
me.
because Maude she's determined she's going to tell Uncle Henry the truth about Marta.
And Walter's like, please don't, because if you do, that means that we're going to have to give up the trip.
You can't do this. He says, I deserve this money.
Yes.
So, and I think that then they had like gone out to the living room.
They go out into the living room
because Maude is determined she's gonna tell Uncle Henry the truth about
And you know, I think Walter then says money doesn't grow on
trees.
And Uncle Henry comes back with this really stupid dad joke saying, I always said paste grows on trees. Pastry. And Uncle Henry laughs and Marta does that wicked laugh. And I think Marta turns to Walter and says, get it, Walter?
Yes.
And Walter then says, you don't know how I'm getting it or where.
And Walter's like, Maude, I beg of you. And she's saying, I have to tell him. And he's saying, well, you can kiss Japan goodbye.
And I think Marta then says, oh, he's just as cheap with you as he was with me.
Right. And Walter's saying, well, you know, cheap.
I bought you luxury cars and furs.
Right.
And Marta says, furs?
Yeah.
Fancy cars. You bought me a Volkswagen with a foxtail on the antenna.
Right.
And I think Maude says, well, that's it. I'm the only person that gets to call him cheap, and that's what you are, Walter. You're cheap.
Yes.
I really feel bad for Walter in this episode. He kind of gets put through the ringer a little bit.
He does. He really does.
So I think at that point, Maude then says, I have to say it.
Yes. She has to say how
Uncle
she feels.
Henry, she has to
Miami
has so much appeal.
Marta has no appeal.
Has zero appeal.
Yes.
So she says, Uncle Henry, Marta is marrying you for your money. And he just haplessly says, I know that.
We have an understanding.
You may be a ginger snap, but I'm no fruitcake.
Yes. When he said we have an understanding, or remind me a lot of the gay couples with an open relationship.
Oh, God.
We have an understanding.
Yeah, we have an understanding, and it just makes me feel unclean sometimes.
I know.
Not that I have anything against people who are in polyamorous or open relationships. You are free to love and live how you so choose.
True.
Just for me, it has been and proven to be awful.
Awful.
That was because my partners were narcissistic pieces of garbage.
So,
At least I'm not bitter.
So Uncle Henry he's saying, you know, they have an understanding, and he says, why else would this beautiful woman
want an old futz like me?
Right. Why else would she want him?
And he says, Maude, she's marrying me for everything she can get her hands on. That's exactly why I'm marrying her.
Exactly why. She's doing the same thing. And then we get the story of the first wife. Sophie?
I think it was Sophie.
Yes.
He mentions, like, you know, this is the happiest I've been since my poor wife Sophie, may she rest in peace, choked on one of my macaroons.
Choked on a macaroon. Do you like macaroons?
I do.
I love macaroons.
I like macaroons and I like macarons.
I love them both.
Yep. I don't discriminate against sweets.
I do not discriminate against any cookies.
I do not discriminate against sweets.
I love them all. Vanilla, chocolate, you know, poppy seed,
oatmeal raisin, white macadamia,
white
chocolate.
You know,
just any Italian cookie you throw at me.
Pecan Sandy.
Oh my God, Pecan Sandy.
Wait,
Lorna Doone.
Pecan Sandy, wasn't she a drag queen from the Midwest? I think so.
Yeah. Please welcome to the stage,
Pecan Sandy.
And you know you could do four different drag queens like that. You have Pecan Sandy, you have Pecan Sandy, you have Pecan Sandy, and you have Pecan Sandy.
Well, so Uncle Henry, he appreciates that they were, Maude was, looking out for him.
But obviously, he's very happy with the arrangement because Marta is gonna spend all of his money, and she is going to spend. She's gonna spend a lot of his money. And he is going to enjoy the fruits of that labor.
Yes, and Uncle Henry says we're going to have to make like a banana and split.
Just the puns. The puns. Oh, the puns.
The puns.
The puns are horrendous.
And Marta's like, well, that's the way that the cookie crumbles.
And she does that villainous laugh again and says, "Get it, Maude?" And Maude says, "You don't know how I'm getting it."
And Uncle Henry says, "Well, let's go spend some money." And
Let's go and spend some money. And she calls him Teddy Bear. Okay, Teddy Bear.
Yeah,
and they exit, and the audience gives a big round of applause, which again I always appreciated when it came to like live shows, how they would applaud an actor entering and exiting.
Well, they have big signs telling the audience
to applaud. That's true.
When to applaud.
Very true. Very, very true.
That was, I mean, it wasn't really like, I mean, they were doing it, but they were
told.
prompted.
They were told to do it.
They were prompted to do it.
So they leave, and Walter's like,
"Son of a gun. What can you say?
What can you say?" And Maude then says,
"I hope she likes macaroons."
Yep. And then we have we have an epilogue.
An epilogue, yes. Maude and Mrs. Naugatuck are in the kitchen.
3% for laundry.
Yes, Maude is doing something on the calculator.
1% cost of living, and now you get paid $6.34 a week.
More. Was it more, or was it?
I don't know. I think
to,
it was just. It brings your cost of living up to $6.34 a week.
No, it had to be $6.34 more a week
during the 70s.
Yes.
You
weren't getting $6 a week even then. Trust me.
I don't know.
Trust me. No, you weren't.
I don't know. I mean, let's also take into consideration that, like, Mrs. Naugatuck was probably Mrs. Naugatuck, Victoria, Florida. They were probably all working off the books.
Well, that's true.
That money wasn't taxed.
That's true. But no, not $6.34.
I still think it was $6.34 for the entire week.
No.
Listen, I was watching The Nanny.
Yeah.
And the nanny made, I think in the first season, $6 an hour.
Right.
That was during the 90s.
Yeah. So 40 hours times 6, so
I guess
$240 a week.
I guess it was $6.34 more.
Yeah,
a week.
Yeah, $6.
Well,
I mean, she probably wasn't making that much anyway.
That's very true. There was also an episode where Mrs. Naugatuck was actually pilfering money from everybody in order to afford and rent out a small apartment for herself outside of the Finleys.
Oh.
But we'll get to that episode soon. We haven't even met Mrs. Naugatuck's boyfriend yet.
True.
I've not even gotten there yet.
So now Mrs. Naugatuck, she has a question.
Am I entitled to maternity leave?
And Maude's like, maternity leave? So she starts. I don't know what she was looking at because it's only a calculator.
It's mandatory.
Yeah, it's mandatory.
And Maude types into the calculator, "At your age, impossible."
Impossible.
And Mrs. Naugatuck hits one button and says, "Anything's possible if you push the right button."
If you push the right button.
And that's how the episode... Did they hug at the end? I think they hug at the end.
Did they hug? I remember them laughing. Maybe they hugged.
That might have been.
They were happy. They were happy.
They were happy and in love. They were happy and in love.
They were a happy ginger snap and tea biscuit, I guess. Because Mrs. Naugatuck is British.
Cheddar biscuits.
They don't have cookies in the.
They have biscuits.
They have biscuits. They have biscuits. Actually, there's. I hate to digress, but I love the British show, Are You Being Served?
Yes, I know you do. This isn't a digression. Go on.
So there's this one show where they're having one of their meetings, and whenever they were having like an after hours meeting, like they would serve them like tea, and they'd give them like some like old like biscuits or whatever. It was never anything good. And the one older salesperson he was only on for one season, Mr. Tebbs. He says he's like they have these water biscuits. You've seen them, Cars water biscuits.
Yes.
Okay, because we can get them here, and they had a box of those. And Mr. Tebbs is like, the Americans won't eat our biscuits. They say there's too many mouse hairs in them.
Okay, sure. I guess that makes sense.
But now, whenever my husband Frank, whenever he gets like those water biscuits from the supermarket,
don't tell me
I pull them out and I'll say to him, the Americans won't eat our biscuits. They say there's too many mouse hairs.
You're an idiot. You are an idiot, and that is the reason why I love you.
Here's the thing, though, like with the one of the Are You Being Served like Facebook groups that I belong to, like you can like post any line from one
and
of the
someone
episodes.
they'll just
And
start
then
the
they
episode.
and everybody's like, and then somebody's saying the next line, and then the next line, and everybody's
I mean,
laughing.
honestly, it's the same thing with the Golden
With the
Girls
Golden
groups
Girls
that
groups,
we're part
yes,
of. Like,
true.
you post a line, and everyone's just like, "Oh, that was from this episode
yes,
that originally aired here with this guest star." And
Yes.
I'm just like, "Oh my god,
Yes.
I'm amongst my people."
Yes. Well, somebody recently just posted something about like the inconsistencies and all that, and I said, hasn't anyone seen the new Doctor Strange movie?
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
I say obviously there is a multiverse of Golden Girls that exists. In some universes there's an Arnie. In some, he's Miles.
In some, he's Nicky Arnstein.
I mean,
Nicholas Carbone. That was the other one.
In
Samuel Blankmaker.
In some, for Blanche it was Ben, and some it was
Billy, and some it was
Bobby.
And in some, she had 3 boys. And another one, she had a brother that was mentally ill.
Right. I mean, it just it's all over the place because there was no consistency.
There was no script supervisor.
I'm surprised that why didn't you would think
I don't
as an actor, why didn't any of the actors ever say, wait, didn't I just say
I think
last season that this was this or that?
If you look at the way that the actors were interviewed,
mm-hmm.
they were just happy that it was an adult, literate, contemporary script about 4 older women.
Well, that's true.
Living in Miami.
That's true.
There really wasn't a need or a necessity to unless it was the 2-parter episodes,
right,
where the 2-parters needed to be cohesive. But I mean, more often than not, that was, I think, one of the Golden Girls' strengths was the inconsistencies, because you could literally
weren't tied to
they weren't tied
canon.
they weren't tied to canon.
Yes.
And again, it was
which is one of the things, having done cosplay so much and knowing comic books. Like with comic books, especially, like when a new writer comes on and sort of has something in the storyline that contradicts.
If I have to read
something
Bruce
from
Wayne's parents dying again, I'm going to be very. It's the same thing with the movies. How many times can you watch Uncle Ben getting shot?
Yeah.
How many times can you see Jean Grey die?
Right.
I mean, it's fascinating to me.
Yes. But she dies, she comes back. She dies, she comes back. She dies, she comes back. It's like, but
my personal favorite is when you'll get the conspiracy theorists who are like, oh well, it was actually this in the story, and then that in the story, and then this is how that got connected, and then this is how that got connected, and it's just was it written in the story? No. Well, then why are you worrying? Why are you worrying? But I mean, one of the things that I could say about Maude and other shows like Living Single and Frasier and Sex and the City, the more, even in The Honeymooners, the more a series progressed, there would at least be a storyline, and there would be more consistencies, and things would be canon, and this and that and the third. But honestly, I do believe that one of the strengths of the Golden Girls was just that it wasn't consistent, but that it was still entertaining.
True.
That it was still entertaining. Because where did Aunt Angela go?
Yeah.
Aunt Angela had a sex change and became Uncle Angelo.
Yeah, right.
No one talked about it, it just happened. Just sort of happened.
Angela.
But we call the goat a pet.
A pet.
It's really one of those one of those interesting things. But this episode, to sort of bring it back to
bring it back to the episode, please.
Has there ever been a moment in time when you would imagine one of your exes going to a relative?
No.
You don't think?
No.
I don't think either.
No.
I don't think either. No. My one ex would.
I
think the ex I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh,
I think that ex would do something. That one.
Your cats wouldn't be safe.
No, they would not.
Crying out loud.
I really think that one ex would
not in a tree wouldn't be safe. I just felt that Sophia.
I'm not in a tree wouldn't be safe.
I felt that Sophia and me just take over. She does that sometimes.
She does that sometimes. But I mean, it is interesting to see that, like, and again, the odds of that happening where a relative is on a singles cruise and meets an it would be, the odds of that happening are slim.
Astronomical.
But the fact that it could.
Yeah, it could. I mean, it's not.
Still terrifies
It's
me.
not that unbelievable.
It's not that unbelievable. It's true. It's very true. But it's just interesting because, again, and the first time that I saw this episode, I'm like, this is such a stupid episode. This is such a stupid episode. Yeah. But I loved the interactions between Maude and Mrs. Naugatuck, Maude and Marta. Yeah. Even Walter and Marta was entertaining to watch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And again, it was one of the reasons why I wish that Carol
You know
Cook
what,
was
though?
more...
I did not really see Walter with Marta.
They interacted briefly.
I mean, but I just was
when Marta entered, Walter, like, came up to her and, like, gave her a kiss, and, he was just really dumb. Like, they really sort of made Bill Macy play up the, oh my God, I love you so much, Marta. Oh my God, please marry this person so I don't have to pay alimony. Yeah. Like, that was very, very apparent. And, Maude being the protector that she is, wanted to protect her uncle. Yeah. When in all actuality, that was exactly what was happening anyway. He was fine.
Yeah, he was fine with it. But I'm saying, like, I'm like, looking at it, I would be like, I don't know if I could ever see Walter with Marta.
Again, it sort of calls into question that sort of class.
Yeah.
That sort of class conversation that we had with, the last episode that we talked about, or the 2 episodes before? Where, we were addressing how, like, Maude is a college graduate, and Walter was in the military. High school dropout that was in the military. Mm-hmm. And again, to see Marta, who's this very elegant, very beautifully dressed barracuda.
But they portrayed her very high society.
Very high society.
And I was just
like, you saw the diamonds on her hands. Yeah. You saw, like, the brooch on her shawl.
Yeah. I'm just like,
heavily painted makeup.
Yeah.
Heavily painted makeup.
Yeah.
Blue-green eyeshadow, heavy eyelashes. Yeah.
So, I don't know, I just was like, I would never picture
the two of them together.
Those two characters ever together. But maybe, in the storyline it would have been that maybe she wasn't like that when they first got together.
Perhaps, and then she just sort of fell into that.
Yes.
But then this begs the question, are you born a gold digger? Is it nature that you're a gold digger, or is it nurture that you're a gold digger?
Yeah. Well, what's that Kanye song?
We're not going to get into that.
Gold digger song?
I was literally playing the lyrics in my head, and I think it goes, now I ain't saying she's a gold digger. And I ain't she ain't messing with no. Mm-hmm. That next line. Mm-hmm. We know our limitations. We know our limitations.
Yes. I ain't saying she's a gold digger. All right, whatever. Beat that horse to death.
Beat the horse to death, indeed. But truly, one of the funnier episodes with a sillier storyline. Yeah,
it was silly, but it was funny.
It was silly, but it was funny. And that happens more and more frequently in, like, season 3, season 4, season 5, and even season 6. Mm-hmm. I think towards season 6, like, because it was the last one, they definitely made it a little bit more political. Mm-hmm. But in seasons 3, 4, and 5, like, they wanted to make it a little bit more
accessible,
kind of accessible and cartoony almost.
Yeah.
Because, again, the first 2 seasons were just heavy-hitting issues every single week.
Right.
So, yeah. We thank you so much for listening to God Will Get You for That, Walter. We do. And if you would like to listen to us more, you can on YouTube and the other one, Facebook.
Yes, the Book of the Face.
The Book of the Face at God Will Get You for That, Walter. Mm-hmm. And Instagram at Findley's Friendly Appliances. Mm-hmm. Where can they find you?
Everywhere, Toni Homeperm. And of course, that's Facebook, Instagram,
the Cuckoo
YouTube,
Clock app.
The app of the Cuckoo Clock.
The app of the Cuckoo Clock.
The tick-tock. The ticking of the tock.
The ticking of the tock.
The ticking. I hear the ticking of the clock. It's
lying here, the room's pitch dark.
Yes. I have heart.
Yeah, always have heart. Always have heart.
And where can they find you?
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Laugh like Marta.
And will you be wearing that outfit?
I would.
When you're laughing like that.
I would love. You have no idea. The first time when she ended, I was like,
I have to make that. You
I
were
want that
right.
outfit.
You were like, I have to make that.
I have to make that. Well, don't laugh. I actually want to dress up as Betty Davis doing All About Eve with that sort of off-the-shoulder brown taffeta dress. And I've like looked up. It's a very simple outfit to make. It's just a lot of layers. Because it's the petticoats, and then it's the giant skirt dress.
Taffeta, darling.
Taffeta dear. Taffeta dear. Me and my girlfriend, Josh, were talking yesterday. And he's also a drag queen of note. And we were talking about fabrics that we always work with. And I always work with some type of velvet. I could live and die in velvet because I
could die in velvet.
I could die in velvet. There are times when I have.
Times when you wished you would.
But I love the feel of velvet. I love the look. I love how it photographs. I love how it sews. And he's just like, oh my God, I don't know how you do it. But then he's like, I can't really talk because I do everything in taffeta. And I'm like, taffeta, the structure, the body.
Taffeta, darling.
It is an interesting fabric to work with. But yes, you can find me at that Tom Cat on all forms of social media. And that is
in or out of velvet.
Or out of velvet.
Yes.
And that is, of course, Cat with 2 T's, because I am not the Tom of Tom and Jerry fame.
There you go.
We thank you so much for listening, and you will hear us on another episode of God Will Get You for That, Walter. Bye, guys.
Good night.